Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending, of course, upon where you are in the world. We have quite a worldly crew here today to speak. Let me start by introducing my panel. We have Amanda Kate, who is with us from Australia, and it's very early in the morning for her right now. She has woken herself up out of her sleep early to be here with us today. So thank you for that, Amanda. We appreciate you.
My pleasure.
We have Michall Medina from Israel, who now you guys are 6 or 7 hours ahead of us.
7. It's 8:37 p.m.
Okay.
here.
And we have the lovely Marianne St.Clair with us today from the United States. So we've got people from literally all over the world, and myself from here in Canada. So welcome, ladies. Thank you all very much for taking and making the time to be here with me today and to participate in this conversation today. If you are catching this live, please comment below with #live. If you happen to be catching it on the replay, comment below with #replay. Welcome all of you that are tuning in live. We appreciate you being here with us. Today's topic, this is episode 3 of the Empowerment Sessions. We are going to be talking about the fact that life isn't a balance sheet. It's not about ticking all the boxes. And are you ticking all the boxes, but still feeling unfulfilled in your life? So really, it gets down to, if that's the case, if you're going through life and you're ticking all these boxes, but you're still not feeling fulfilled in your life, what do we do? How can we shift that societal and parental conditioning that's been bred into all of us? And how do we start to change that and break out of those narratives and break out of that conditioning to live the life that we want to live, that makes us happy? So, Amanda, I would love to hear your thoughts. How do we go about doing that, do you think? And what is your experience in being in the conditioning and whatnot?
Look, I mean, that obviously is a very nuanced and broad question, because I think it would be slightly different for everybody. I think we don't often realize that we're going along with conditioning. We don't always realize we're in conditioning because we're all in the water and we're all wet and we're all swimming in it. And so we can't always see that we're wet until people start pointing out the fact that we're wet, or until parts of us come out of the water and we're like, that feels different. and so, for me, it was really because I kept getting smacked down with illness, with fatigue. I had chronic fatigue. And so my body was actually screaming at me that things needed to change because this was not working. And I noticed that a lot of people who, specifically those ones in the more autoimmune category, tend to often be those deeper, unfulfilled desires and soul callings that are saying, you are not on your path. You need to change path. And we will often find that it comes through in the physical and we're not able to function as well. Even things like depression and anxiety are often coming to show us that we are so far off our path that, we need some help to get back onto it. And a lot of the more traditional therapies, I don't think, take into account that part of it. But for me, it was following that narrative and going, white, relatively privileged, although when I was young, we didn't have a lot of money, but privileged by skin color, I guess.
Yeah.
White, privileged, Church of England raised, girl, went to school, got good grades, operated within this narrow band of acceptable behavior. And every time I wobbled outside of it, I got smacked back into it by whichever force that happened to be, usually through guilt, shame, blame, those sorts of religious conditioning tools.
Mm-hmm.
And then went to university, ended up working for my dad for a bit. And then my sister went traveling. So I just followed her traveling because she wanted me to come with her. And so nothing was really my choice ever.
Yeah.
And even when I got into the marriage, it was like, ooh, it was doing it because that was my next logical step. That was the next box to tick. And so it is following this prescription for whatever your background is, because that's just what people in your family do, or that's just how it's always been done. And, I think of that story where, this woman always cut the end off her lamb roast. And somebody asked her, why do you do that? She's like, I don't know, mum's always done it. So, this guy goes back and asks the mum, why did you do it? And because he'd been invited over for this meal, and well, because my mum always did it. And so, and they go back to the grandma, and the grandma's like, well, because I had a really small oven and we couldn't fit the roast in. And so we always cut the ends off. I don't know why the others do it. But they just always seen it being done, so they thought that's just how you cooked. I mean, I know that's a crazy story.
Consciously, that's what we do, right? We just
But
we
that
get up
is
and we brush our
years-
teeth the same way.
That is years of shit that we have to now deprogram within ourselves. Like that is, and
But
I
not
think,
even understanding why it's there.
yeah.
What put it there?
That exactly illustrated that point. It's like all of these just did it because, and there was a logical reason behind why it started. Like it's crazy, but that is years of shit to deprogram and do the work. Take the initiative to do the work. But the problem is a lot of the people don't want to do the work. They don't want to look within themselves because they're scared of what they'll see.
I don't even necessarily think that is that they don't want to do the work. I think the way I describe it to my clients is, if you think of all the tools that we use in our work as being in our local hardware store. Now, some people drive past that store and don't even see it. They just see this big building on the side. They may not even see the building. They've just got their blinkers on and they're traveling through world. Other people will see, it's not for me.
Yeah.
Others will kind of pull into the car park and then get a bit scared and off they go again. And then others will venture into the store, and some will just spend time in the gardening section, or some will be at the paints, or some will be here. And how many people will actually go in and go, you know what, I know that everything in here has a place. And at some point I want to learn how to use it.
Yeah.
That's my way of looking at it. But I have to respect all of those other things. Other people are just the kids who go and get the boxes so that they can make arts and craft. There's all of these different ways of expressing it. But I think that's the way that so many people go through life is, and that's how I explain the tools for people. And other people are quite happy going and getting, their Fisher Price toolkit that they had as a child and using those tools.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Michall, or Marianne, you started. Go ahead, Marianne. Sorry,
I just
Michall.
want to share in the space right now. There's a wonderful quote that Alvin Toffler, he's a philosopher. He says that it won't be the people of the 21st century, that it won't be because we're illiterate, will be the idiots and the stupid, or however that word that he used, won't be because we're illiterate. It will be because we don't have the ability or the understanding to unlearn, to relearn, unlearn, to learn, to relearn. And I think this is precisely what we're talking about today, is that, we have to understand that there's I call them beliefs, barriers, and bullshit that we're living that has been programmed. Our minds are just computers. They're just basically a computer. And unless we defrag it and we hard drive, wipe our hard drive clean every once in a while and go back to like we were as kids, full of wonder, full of, I wonder what we could learn today. I wonder what life is going to bring us now. I wonder, but everything from how we get out of bed in the morning. And it all, like what you said, it all depends on what socioeconomic group you were born into, or were you where you were raised, those handed down beliefs that we aren't even aware of what we're doing, that were programmed into us, that have nothing to do with us and who we are and how we want to express ourselves. And I think, gosh, if I could just, I loved when you were sharing about how you were such a good girl. You were doing the things until you got slapped back in. And What would
Mm.
it be like if we were just our wild, unapologetic, so fully expressed selves? Who would we be?
Mm.
I don't know, but I'm
Yeah.
trying to find me that does that, because I think there's still, even though I've been on this journey for 40 years, I think there's still parts of me that is still the good girl, that is still the
Mm.
mom, the taking care of my mom, my kids, my grandkids. There's still parts of me that wants to go travel the world. When I look on Facebook and I see everybody, I'm going, damn, I wish that was me,
Yeah.
So there's times when I catch myself, why am I doing what I'm doing?
Mhm.
And I think asking questions is key. Like this conversation we're in today, it's like finding those good questions. And are we asking the deep, insightful ones that will let us dig in and get into why we're doing what we're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. And
And
that's
also,
a,
which roles are we choosing to play? When you were saying about all those different roles, which roles are we choosing to play? If your mum's unwell or your parents are unwell and you're choosing, that role of carer, then that's fine. But if you're feeling like you have no other choice but to be carer, then you're coming at it from a different perspective. So,
I've
and
had
while
to
we've got
shift those.
children, where do we, where does that role start and end? So yeah,
yeah.
Well, and
absolutely.
that's
I love what you
key
say there.
because I had to shift that because I was resentful.
Mm,
I was very resentful. I was like,
mm,
when you get better, I'll get my life back. Now,
yeah.
my daughter's been in the hospital for the last
Mm,
month, and she's really been fighting for her life. And I'm watching her two kids. And as I'm doing this, I was telling Brad before, yeah, there's a part of me that would like to be doing something else. But at the same time, there was this wonderful shift inside of me at some point over the last, I don't know, 5 years, that instead of being resentful, I get to choose.
mm,
I get to choose to support my daughter. I get to choose to support my mom.
mm.
Get to choose to be here. To a lot of grandparents don't get to see their grandkids. I
Yeah,
get to see mine every day.
yeah.
Very
So
true.
it's why we're doing things
Mm,
and making conscious choices as to why we're doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Michal?
That brings fulfillment.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I think in terms of this like deconditioning thing, it kind of becomes like a lifelong practice, right? Because at first, like, we go through the hard time in our life that kind of wakes us up to like, what am I doing with my life? I'm not fulfilled. Like, and then it kind of pushes you onto the path of like going inward and growing and what do I really want to do with my life and rearranging things in your life. And then you step onto this expansive path, which is where you're kind of being pushed to because life just kind of made it apparent for you. And then you step onto this path and then you still have all this conditioning, like being the good girl and doing it
mm,
XYZ and which one's the right way or the wrong way. And like, you're just living through like just layers of deconditioning as
mm.
you continue on your path. So it's like, it's kind of like an ever evolving process. Like, I think it doesn't ever really end until the end of our lives, you know? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
absolutely.
got born and we got all this conditioning, and then we worked the rest of our life. From some point we worked the rest of our life to decondition all those things, to get back to the innocence, to get back to the way we were
Yeah.
born fully. If you think about it, when you're born as a whole complete soul,
Mhm.
and you have everything and you're fully who you are, and then all this conditioning and stuff keeps fragmenting us into sometimes the just the bare essence of our soul. I mean, you just see this little flicker of a light, and then I think we spend a lot of time after that reigniting our flame within us and bringing it forward and to where it can shine so brilliantly by the time we move through and we get to that innocent place that is where we were when we were born.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it.
But
I'd love to
genetically,
talk about like what y'all's wisdom and insight is on how to do that deconditioning, because maybe there's people in the audience that would
Yeah.
really benefit from that. Yeah.
Just quickly on the birth thing, you know, we as women are born with all the eggs we're ever going to have. So our children, when we're born, and just to go to that, you know, we're already born with so much of this because we've been in our mother her entire life, and we were in our grandmother for whatever stage it was that those eggs were fully formed within that baby. And so we already have a lot of that genetic conditioning in us and a lot of that genetic story in us in that cellular level. So and that's just that biological point of view. So when it comes to the epigenetic point of view, we've got so much conditioning and story already in our cells before we're born and when we are born. So, you know, I loved to believe that prior to knowing that we were born as these beautiful clean slates, but actually we're not.
Yeah.
We've been in our grandmother. If she had a stressful pregnancy, we're born with that because we're put into our mother with that. And as children, we don't separate from energy fields until we're 7 years old. And that's why at the age of 7, they call it the age of reason. And you see this little independence coming through, is because we separate our energy fields from our mothers. So we have our mother's conditioning until the time we are 7. And so when you're thinking about it in terms of the conditioning that we've already got, and the amygdala is programmed pre-2. A lot of the brain areas are programmed pre-7. And you go, well, hang on, how much of that is us? And how much is that true expression of us? And so I think most of our life is about that unlearning and de-evolving from what we have been born into and experienced through society and all the rest of it into, you know, what Michall was just asking about.
Yeah. And that's also not to mention, you know, if anyone believes in past lives too, like the lessons that you still need to learn, come into this life to learn.
Yeah, I didn't want to go back into that bit.
There's a lot of unpacking there, right? It's huge.
That's why I say we're already a soul coming in. Not that we are this clean slate of a soul, because we're not. We definitely we're not.
Yeah.
We're coming and as you go, okay, well, how many? I mean, I'm an old soul. This isn't my first party, you know, and you can get these little glimpses and these little, you know, flashbacks of what some of those things were, those lives that we did. But I love your question.
Yes.
Michall. So
sorry, I didn't want to interrupt that, but I figured I kind of just put that little bit in so that we understand how deep that conditioning is.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I love what you were saying, Marianne, like back to that childlike innocence, that wonder, because that's exactly what it is. Like, I think the biggest factor in that affects our life is like the conditioning around our emotions. Right? Because we feel these emotions and we're like, oh no, they're bad. Like it's societal conditioning. It's every like certain emotions are bad, and it's bad to express them. And so we're taught that like we shouldn't be crying and we shouldn't be feeling this way. And like, so we're taught to suppress our emotions. And I really think like the beauty and power in deconditioning comes back to that like childlike innocence. Like these emotions aren't bad. Like it's just what I'm feeling, and I can validate for what I'm feeling, like be the parent to ourselves that maybe we didn't have growing up, that it's like, it's okay to feel what we're feeling. Like we're scared, that's okay, you know? And it's really just coming back to that innocence. And then we can start to really make the magic within our own world, because we're not just resisting and stuffing away. And we're able to like just really like let things flow, and then through that we can start to come more alive, and we can start to decondition different layers of like what we've picked up and what we've learned in society and all of that. But all of that comes through like relating to ourselves and our emotions in a new way.
So would you consider that a tool that you use, emotional intelligence? Is that what an EMT, or what kind of tools do you use around that?
Oh, so funny you should ask. I actually
you brought up the tools. So.
I actually developed my own tool because I wasn't finding anyone really putting it in this way. Like a lot of tools, it's like it's treating parts of ourselves as something bad that needs to be fixed, right? Or release this negative energy, or like just or it's like, I need to fix this part of me, this insecurity, I need to fix it, there's something bad about it. And I really was finding that that's really what was prevalent out there, and like the tools. And so yeah, I basically just delved into my own emotions and just figured out what worked. And it was not pushing away, not trying to fix things, not trying to release things, but just holding space for what's there, you know? And then and
Yes.
not being like, okay, like TikTok, when's it gonna shift? Like, I'm still sad. Like, no, just being there. And then after a while, it just starts to move. And then you start
At
to get a
least-
new perspective about the thing that made you sad. You're like, oh, now I see it so clearly. Like, this person is just this, and that, and it's nothing to do with me. But you can't see that when you're all emotionally charged, you know? But that clarity comes when you're just not trying to fix yourself anymore. You're just with your emotions. And then you're not, you know,
Mm.
it's
You're not
just
broken.
okay that they're
You're not
there.
broken.
Yeah, you're not seeing yourself as already whole. You're loving the parts of you that feel sad. Yeah.
Part of what I use there, and Brad, you can, you've got 3 women here. Would you like to say something?
No, you guys go ahead. I'll jump in when I feel the need.
Well, just please, because we are women, we can talk all day, but I don't know. You lead a lot of these conversations. One thing that I find is, because I go to the body a lot, and Michall, you brought this up so beautifully, that when we're trying to meet that with resistance, when we're trying to fix it or change it and make it wrong and everything, our body doesn't feel safe. And until you can establish and know what safety feels like in your own body, and when you can go to safety first and foremost to know everything's okay, I'm feeling good, I'm safe, then you can open, and you can make that opening. And so in the work I do around sexuality and the body, I think I love using sexuality as a tool, because it's really getting to things quickly, that a lot of us feel guilt, shame, and a lot of conditioning around. And first and foremost, until we establish that safety, there's nowhere to go. There just is, because the person will be closed, because they won't feel there will be some kind of move away from, rather than lean in and open. So I love that you said, just be still and sit with it, because then it can move, it can dissolve, it can transmute, it can do all of those things when we just be with it.
Yeah. And I think
Amanda?
a lot of people
sorry.
also
No,
I
go
think
ahead.
a lot of people also think like, okay, if I really sit with my emotions and let myself feel them, like they're so afraid that they think that, they're just gonna get so overwhelmed and it's gonna get worse. But it's actually it's counterintuitive, but it's actually the opposite, right? Because it's like, when you're like, okay, I'm gonna feel it, but I'm resisting and I'm judging and I'm blaming myself and I'm blaming the story. It's like, okay, then you're not truly feeling the emotions. When you're truly feeling the emotions, it's this non-judgment. It's just this total acceptance for what you're feeling.
But
there's a
do
different
you
approach.
do you experience that people even know how to feel? I mean, they're
I
trapped up
think they
here.
need
90%
guidance.
they're trapped up here,
Right.
because they've been cut off. They've abandoned their bodies. They've abandoned their feeling state, because it wasn't safe. They were told that it was bad, it was wrong to feel this way. So it's like compartmentalizing themselves. I can't feel this, so I'm gonna act a certain way or think a certain way, because that way I can please people, I can make sure everybody's okay, my world is okay, and I'm not being threatened by being me, by wanting
Right.
to feel.
Right.
And I think in my experience, there's feeling is like a foreign thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think it definitely takes someone showing them, like guiding them, like, okay, it's okay to be in your body, like, create more space. Like if you have someone like guiding you, then you can do it. If you've never done that before. Yeah.
Yeah, getting into the sensations.
Right, right.
That I use sensuality all the time because it's just the sensations. People think sensuality is sex, or it's, even pleasure, the word pleasure, which pleasure is our birthright. It is what we are here. You're always doing something. What you're doing is because you either want to experience more joy, more happiness, more. So you're moving towards and you're wanting to do those things, but we've been taught, or we haven't been taught. Most of us haven't had any kind of education around pleasure. So we think what we've been taught is it's bad, it's wrong, it's sexual, but truly pleasure is a state of being. It's a force within you. It's life force. It's that erotic life force energy that's within all of us that wants to move through us, but yet we don't, because we're better off hiding from that, because that was made to be wrong. And then, but how can we feel fulfilled and alive if we're not in our bodies, if we're not feeling? So
It's been sexualized, the word pleasure and all those things. It's always about sex, and that's the media, that's religion, that's all of these things that have played a part in our conditioning around those words. It's not just about sexuality. Like you said,
it's
pleasure
sexual
is,
energy.
yeah,
It's sexual energy. It's erotic life force energy, but it
Yeah,
is
life force.
not sex.
that's right.
Can be. You can move
Sure.
it, you can feel it, but it is not sex.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's the energy that we create everything from.
Right.
And we can't create anything without that energy. But it's also the schooling system starts us from such a young age, because it has been so, overshadowed with systems, whether it be church, government, everything. And it teaches us to not ask those questions. It teaches us to not be curious. We just do what we're told. We learn what we're told. We recite what we're told. It is not a learning system. It is a recitation system where we are just regurgitating everything that we're told that we should know. And so in terms of the emotional side of things, we've never been safe to explore who we are, because that's not okay with society. That's not okay with most families. That's not okay with the church. It's certainly not okay to express yourself at school. It's not okay to express yourself, even in Australia, we weren't allowed to protest, for a while there. And, you kind of just go, oh my God, you are kidding me, aren't you? Like, this should be that fundamental right to speak up if we don't agree with what's going on. And yet silence, be that good kid. Children should be seen and not heard. And that's the way we are treated as adults in this society, is you should be seen and not heard. Just go about your little workaday, day, and keep being your groundhog. And, there isn't that ability to tap into that magic in so many ways. And we're certainly not taught that, because if we had a world of free thinkers, then we wouldn't necessarily need all of those structures that have been created in place. And I think in terms of that, emotions, we do need people to guide us through it. And I speak about it in terms of internal scaffolding and external scaffolding. It is building those internal tools that we can use, but also understanding that we do need those external supports, because people can see things from different perspectives, because they've got different life experiences, because they're not in your shit with you. They can kind of see what's going on around it that might be feeding into where you're at. And so, I have a number of professionals that I trust, that I work with when I get into certain situations. And and I build the internal scaffolding. What can I do in my moment? How can I ask more questions? As you guys have said before, how can I get into that curious state? How can I find the wonder and awe in my mundanity of, sometimes those Groundhog Day things that we have to do? And how can we find the magic in the monotony? How can we find those bits, those moments of wonder, those moments of, say with your grandchildren, oh my God, I got to witness that. How lucky am I? Or with your mother, even, being that sandwich generation, with your mother going, oh my God, I actually got to see her do that, or be with her when that happened, and finding that wonder.
Two of them together, and then bring the great grandchild with the grandmother, and oh my gosh, watching the magic there.
Yeah,
The generations.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely. It's
and so I think it's finding that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think as we become adults, again, this goes to the conditioning. We forget what it's like to be kids and wonder with that childlike wonderment and easement. Right. And it's like, you can't stop acting like a child. You're an adult. Like, why are you acting like? No, why can't we get back to that? That's
but
probably the most free we've ever been.
But even children are told that.
Yeah. Well,
you're supposed to be at school for 7 hours a day. You sit on that damn mat. Well, hang on a minute. And then all these, young boys who are supposed to be out climbing trees and playing with sticks and doing all of these, and not just boys, children, by the way.
Yes.
Let's but children are meant to be moving and playing and doing all of this stuff with their bodies, but they've got to sit on a mat or sit quietly for however long. That is actually unnatural. And what we are doing is very early starting to squash that natural idea. So even children aren't allowed to be children, and they need to be medicated because they're not following this prescription of whatever. Hang on a minute. I have people come to me with their children going, oh, they've just been diagnosed with ADHD. I said, it's a 7-year-old child being forced to sit on a carpet. Which bit of this do you think's wrong? It's not your child. Your child is fine. And they're talking about really basic, normal child behaviors that their children are now being, and I'm like, oh my God. And that's the conditioning, and that's how early it starts. And so I think with us in this role, it is about educating not just our clients. It's that ripple effect. It is educating the clients so that they can then educate their children, so that they can see their children differently and take some of that pressure and judgment and blame and all those other things you guys have talked about off. Because at the moment we're putting it on from such an early age. It's no wonder that we think life is about ticking boxes, because that's all we do at school.
Yeah.
We have to tick the boxes to get this grade.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at boys versus girls when we're growing up. Girls are taught, you sit over there, you keep quiet, prim and proper, don't speak. And boys are taught, no, don't show your emotion. Stop crying. Stop being a little girl. Stop crying and all this shit. Like, that's crazy. Just let the kids be kids, period. That's it, right? Because then that just carries on into their adult years.
Yeah, 100%.
If you think about when we begin to go to school, it's all colorful walls, it's crayons, it's creativity, there's stuff all over the walls, and we're sitting around singing, playing in preschool up until about grade 1 or 2. Then we start getting the ruled paper. We get by the time we get out of school, we're marching into a direct line. You can't step out of it. I say it's a direct process to the jails, because if you look at the high schools before they get out of high schools, I don't know about in your countries, but there's barbed wire around the thing. It's all dull green. It's a blackboard. You sit and you face straight, and you've got a black pen, a number 2 pencil, and you've got to write within the ruled lines. And if you color outside or you doodle outside of it, you get marks. And you're not good if you don't get A's, and you're bad at, then you're labeled into a bad kid or whatever. It's just this system that so
that uncreatives you.
The school
to take the color away.
Yeah, the
And then
school
I think
system is
this
a
is that thing that we then
yeah.
try and build back in
Mhm.
is, well, hang on, my life is so dull. This is so ridiculous. You know, I'm with a person that I don't really resonate with. I've found myself in this life, and I say it from my experience, but it's not just my experience. It's, you know, it is so many people's experience. We end up in the wrong marriages because, oh, well, that person kind of looks good on paper. Again, it's the tick box. You know,
Mhm.
my relationship changed when I was looking at what can I bring to a relationship? How can I show up? How do I want to be when I'm with that person? And how do I want to be with them in conflict? How do I want to be with them when the honeymoon period's over? How do I want to be, you know, how do I want to show up in all these different ways? And changing that paradigm of relationship to look at what I could offer and how I could be
Or
change
maybe you
so many
don't want just
things.
one.
Yeah,
Or
well,
maybe you don't want
exactly.
just one, you
But
know?
in all of my relationships,
Mhm.
regardless of what they are, it's
Yeah.
I'm going about how do I want to be first. And it's changed the people I've, you know, attracted into my life because of
Yes.
that, changing that paradigm. And I think, you know, going back to what Michall says, is going in, what is that internal landscape? What does it look like for me? What does it feel like for me? And rather than this is a good emotion, a bad emotion, if we look at it like a soul guidepost, I want less of that, I
Mm.
want more of this. Why am I feeling that? What led to that feeling? How did I get to that feeling? What stories are at play here? And well, hang on, that makes sense that I'm feeling that way. And when I'm feeling good, okay, so what led to that feeling? You know, and again, we don't want to be labeling good bad necessarily, but it's the easiest way to illustrate. But those things that we really enjoy feeling, those things that feel expansive and exciting and all of that, they're showing us our soul path. You know, I felt excited and happy every time every time I had a night without my ex-husband. You know, that showed me that was an emotional way of showing me, yeah, the reason you're feeling horrible when you're with him is because he's not bringing that out in you. And you can't bring it out around him because it's not safe to.
You had to dull your
Right.
You
shine.
know what? Yeah.
Mm.
And so you look at those different feelings and they're guideposts to show us what's working and what's not working so great for us.
Mhm.
And that goes back again to, you know, to what Marianne was saying about feeling into the body and being in the body and getting out of the head and being able to, you know, sit
Discern.
with what's going on.
Yeah. Knowing that yes and no. So Michal, where are you now? Where as we took what you said and we went over here and
Oh my
everything,
gosh. Do you want
come
to know if I
back.
have something to say?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So we were starting to talk about, you know, kids in school, and it just reminded me the other day that I was just like, I was so angry at like how we're raised, right? Because I was the good girl. I was like perfect A's, like perfect everything, the overachiever, doing all these leadership positions and in college and just ticking all the boxes and being super perfect. And then when it came to like, you know, quarter life crisis, on a new path and all of that, and then it came to entrepreneurship, it's like all of the skills that you learn in school, like the do it the right way and get the A's, like that doesn't work in the real world, especially not in entrepreneurship. You have to like change the way you're operating in life. Like you have to just totally just flip everything all around, and you have to learn a whole new way of being, because everything you were taught in school just doesn't work in entrepreneurship. There's no right way, there's no wrong way, no one's going to give you an A. It just doesn't work. So it's like that. I was just so mad. I was like, oh, like darn school system just taught me how life just it's nothing like that, you know?
Well, it's good for corporate. It's good for to
I
stay
was the
inside the
perfect
box.
employee. Yeah.
Yeah. It's good when
So
you want to be.
what gave you that wake up, Michelle? How did you, like when you say the quarter life crisis, what kind of gave you that wake up to go, this isn't really working? What else?
Yeah. Honestly, like I was the people pleaser. I needed
Hmm.
people to validate me. I needed to feel good about myself because other people liked me and approved of me and all of that. So I was like the perfect student, but also like super nice to everyone. And I didn't want anyone to be mad at me. So I would like go way out of my way to get everyone to super like me. You know, I was a super likable person.
I laugh because it's not familiar at all.
Many of
I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't
Many
need
of
you
us,
to like
right?
me. No, but that's what it was. I needed everyone to like me, but I didn't realize that. All I knew was I was the life of the party and everyone loved me. And the first time I noticed myself getting insecure was the first time my heart was broken. And then all of a sudden I would just be worried that this was in college. I would just be worried that my friends didn't want to hang out with me, or maybe they hung out without me and didn't invite me, and I would just super freak out. So those were kind of the first signs, but I still wasn't self-aware enough to know that, like, you know, there was just a worldview that was out of alignment in terms of needing people to like me and all of that. But the second time was like a group rejection by some friends. And I was like I guess I needed so badly for everyone to approve of me that it felt like my life kind of depended on it. And so, yeah, like it was just like, it was so dangerous if someone didn't approve of me. It like subconsciously, it felt like it was just way too dangerous. And so then, yeah, that happened. They rejected me. And then I just started experiencing social anxiety out of nowhere. Like I went from being calm and confident around people, just super myself. And then all of a sudden I would just like interact with someone and I would freeze, like my heart would race, like my mind would go blank. And I didn't know what was happening. It was so weird. I was like, what the heck is going on with me? And I would just get like frozen. It was so awkward. And so that's really what got me started on like, what is going on? Like, I can't control this. I can't prevent it from happening. And I just isolated myself. I was just like locked in my house for days, like scared to go out because I would run into someone I knew. And then that sent me into depression. And it just felt like every part of my life was just kind of crashing down. Like it was like my friends couldn't relate to me. They didn't know what was going on with me. I went from being this happy person to like, they just didn't know how to help me. And so it just felt like they weren't there for me. And then I was in the religious community. I have an interesting story. I grew up in Christianity and then converted to Judaism because I had like Jewish ancestry in my family background. And so I became like super religious Jewish. And in the religious community, I think it was also with the social anxiety and the insecurities, and then feeling like everyone was just like keeping tabs on me and judging me and talking about me, like in the religious community. And so it was like I felt unsafe there. And yeah, and then on top of all of that, it was like I was working in electrical engineering and I had done it for 3 years up to that point. And I think just having these other areas in my life kind of just cave in on me made me realize that like I don't really find true fulfillment in what I'm doing in engineering. Like it's something to do, but like now I'm in this place emotionally within myself that I just can't bring myself to do something that doesn't bring a sense of purpose to me. That's not really what I want to be doing with my life. And I didn't know what I wanted to be doing with my life, but I knew that wasn't it. So then I just quit, no plan, moved to Israel. I'm from Texas originally. And my life in Israel was me just kind of figuring myself out and healing, like taking every sort of healing course I could. And I did that for a few years before I started my business, once I got myself to like pretty good place emotionally. So
Wow.
that was it.
And it makes sense that rejection is the thing that spiraled you into that, because physiologically we're wired, from day dot of humanity is if we're not accepted by our tribe, we're cast out into the wilderness and we'll die. So your body was going into, I'm not safe, I'm dead. And because of that rejection, and I think it is such a primal thing for us that we need to be, there is safety in numbers. The only way that we could win against some predators was in that group number. And so it makes a lot of sense that that's where your body went to. What were the first sort of modalities that really started getting you opening up? Which ones did you resonate most with? Your journey sounds a lot like mine, just a couple of different shades and colors in there. But in terms of those modalities that you went, oh my God, that, I know you mentioned about the emotional, fluency, I call it, where you can get to know what those emotions are in your body and become more friendly with them. What other
Yeah.
things did you find what really worked for you, getting you back into, well, who the hell is Michall?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like the years that I was trying all sorts of healing modalities, it felt like I was trying things but not seeing the results that I wanted. Like I was able to learn how to control the anxiety more through that, like less like miserable. I got myself out of the depression because I was in a different mind state. I was like hopeful and determined and searching for healing. So, but I was able to like control it more through the skills that I learned. But the true like results that I found was when I just started delving into myself and figured out my own process and then created that process and started teaching it to others. But it's really that it's because like no one before that point had like said, okay, we're doing these healing modalities, but like don't view yourself as like you're trying to fix yourself and you're trying to make this part of you go away. Like no one ever really said that, you know, and it's just that one little perspective shift that makes the whole difference. Because when you're approaching your own healing by not trying to fix yourself, then you're just able to hold space. Then things can start to move, and then you can start to get those aha moments, and then you can see like the rejection, and you don't feel so hurt by it because you see it from like a fresh new perspective, and that starts to undo all of that like inner trauma, you know. So it really is that. And I'll say another component that I discovered is that you have to have is like being determined to become the person that you'll be on the other side of that. So it's like I could just be feeling the emotions and I'm like, okay, like I'm not trying to fix it. I'm here with it. And I'm just noticing that nothing is really shifting. It's like the emotion is there, the insecurity, the sadness is there, but nothing is really shifting. And then I'm like, oh, I'm like, am I really ready to become the person who's just comfortable being herself, who's open-hearted, who wants to connect with others? And then I would tune into like that future version of me and I'd be like, ooh, I don't feel quite ready. And I'm like, that's it. That's why. And I'm like, okay, so if I don't become that version of me now, like how much longer am I willing to just go on with these insecurities, like go on feeling closed, scared? Like, I'm like, do I really want to go on much longer like this? And then that's when I was just like, actually, no, like, you know, even though it feels scary to become that new version of me, like I really want that because I don't want to keep living my life this way. You know, I just want to I want to feel open again. And so it was that determination to become that future version of me that really started to move things within me. And yeah, then I just started feeling more comfortable with myself and really felt like I actually wanted to connect with people and didn't have that guard up. Yeah.
To
Beautiful.
me,
And
that's really key what both of you all, you know, what all three of us have said about the feeling safe and feeling, and I don't think, and I would, not all coaches, not all therapists, not all people who are working on transformation and everything understand this level of being able to, one, know that within themselves, know that safety, that place in their own body, so that as they're working, like you said, you got to that place within you, but then you saw that future version of you and you like had to tune into it. I don't think unless we, as coaches, unless we can hold that and know that in our own self, and then we can move and oscillate with the energy with the person we're working with. And I don't think that all coaches, healers, whatever, have that ability. I don't think, a lot of them have systems and they may have techniques and they may have tools that they learn from somebody else. But I think it's a very, I don't want to say advanced, but it's somebody who's done a lot of introspection, a lot of their own journey and work, when you can know your own body and then you can feel the other and then invite them and move the energy with them to help them to see that future version, help them to be and connect with that future version and then move it forward.
Mm.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
So I guess what I hear you saying is like there's a lot of practitioners and people out there that can learn the tools, but unless they've walked the walk themselves within their own world and really like figured all of that out, then like unless they've done that, then they're not really able to guide someone else to making those big shifts. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Yeah, because when I went to massage school, 30 years ago, I had already, it wasn't like I needed to go to do this. I needed to go, it was just part of the toolbox that I got, because I didn't go to learn techniques. I already innately within me. But at the same time, there would be people there in massage school that they were up in their head. They were just doing the
Motions.
techniques.
Yeah.
They were doing the effleurage. They were doing the Swedish massage. They weren't feeling.
They were ticking the box.
Able to connect. They couldn't connect with the person. And I don't think, if you're over here and you've got your own baggage and you've got your own, there's a disconnect between how intimate, how connected, how you can be with that other person, how intimate you can be with yourself. First off, let's go to self first, and then we can be with another. But there's a lot that we have to do within ourselves, and I think that it's just everybody brings on one technique and they think they've got it all. I think it's deep work that allows us to be able to really be causing and creating and helping a person to transmute and transform.
One thing to keep in mind, though, is that work never ends. Because we're human beings. We're constantly evolving. Right. So we have to keep doing that work. Right. It's never ending. It has to continue. For sure.
If we want to get to the next version of ourselves, and if we want to uncover that. And I completely agree, because some people sort of go, oh, well, I've made it now.
Yeah.
Well, where's it? And how long will it be this person
for? Are you dead?
Because for me,
go ahead, Amanda. I'll jump in after.
No. I love what you were saying. I think, and I just want to reinforce that point, because I think it's beautiful, Brad, is that, we want to just keep going, and there is no end to those layers of the onion. And I think that's sometimes where that metaphor falls down, is because, I want to put the onion in the Vitamix sometimes and just be done with it and blitz it to hell. But that those layers never, ever stop unfolding.
No, it's funny. I had a podcast interview yesterday with a woman. She's a therapist, or was it yesterday or the day before? Regardless, the point of this was we were talking about this exact thing, is doing the work. Her patients will come in and they'll do the work. They'll come in for the sessions, and she has people ask them, so we're done now, so I don't have any more work to do after our sessions are done. She's like, no, you have to continue on afterward. Yes, we're done the work here in my office. Absolutely. I've given you the tools. Now it's time for you to step out on your own and put those tools into action and start to use them to continue that journey. But it's so funny, because people come and say, okay, so how do we know when we're done here? How do we know when my work's done?
Yeah.
Well, it's never fucking done. You keep going, right?
I get asked that all the time. So how many sessions will I need? Well, where do you want to get to? Like, seriously, because we can, if you think your trauma is going to be fully unpacked in an hour, good luck, I'm not
even in 10 hours. Like, come on, like, it's funny.
Or they'll go, I've been seeing my physio. I had one woman come in. I've been seeing my physio twice a week for, I don't know, however many years it was, 2-3 years, not gotten rid of any back pain. She's like, so how many sessions will I need? I said, so you've been seeing your physio twice a week for 2 years, and you think that in an hour I'm going to be able to magically undo all that shit? Like, seriously, where's the reality? And we saw, and within 2 sessions, she was feeling a lot better, and she was cutting back on her physio. But and then she just stopped seeing me, and I'm like, huh, isn't that interesting? Because some people aren't ready.
Yeah.
Some people
Yeah.
would prefer to
it.
pay the money for somebody to fix them than to do the work
Well, everyone wants that
you know,
magic
because it
pill,
is uncomfortable. Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah.
I
And
mean,
Well,
she
and
may
some
not
people
have
don't want
magic
to
needed,
pill
grow.
people are not my people.
she may not have needed to spend 2 years with you like she did with the
Yeah.
physiotherapist, but if
Yeah.
2 years with that therapist hasn't changed anything, don't you think there's
I
something
know.
wrong there, and you need to look at that and figure it out?
Yeah,
Mhm.
But
that's
that
my
goes back
biggest
to our
frustration.
conditioning.
Yeah.
That goes back to our conditioning.
Yes.
We want to go to the doctor. We want to have that magic pill. We
Mhm.
want to sit back and say, do me, and stay in our comfort zone of, what is, comfort foods, comfort zone, comfort, whatever. And I call it death. I call it dying before you're dead. I don't want to die before I'm dead. I want to be alive. I want to feel it. I want to feel all of the highs and all of the lows, because if I get to here, if I get to that flat line, if I get to my comfort zone, I'm dead.
But you can't experience the highs if you haven't experienced the lows. It's like you can't have darkness without light. You can't have pain without pleasure. Like it's the two work together, and that's it. You have to go through all of it.
Yeah.
I think
Otherwise you're just dead.
it's
Yeah.
finding that harmony. Like when you have the lows, it's like it's all about in how you view it, right? Like
Mhm.
when you have the lows, you're just like, fully loving on yourself for having those lows. Like you're not just like, oh no, the world is ending. Oh, you're so cute.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Somebody needs a hug.
Somebody was knocking at the door.
Oh, it's not like oh, I'm having this low, like I don't want it to be here, like oh, I'm gonna just avoid feeling it. I'm like, oh, this is so annoying, like it's so bothersome that this low is here. It's like, no, like when you can fully find this harmony within it, then it's not a problem anymore.
Yeah.
And it's not like you're just like, oh, just happy thinking. No, it's just like when you truly like love all parts of you, then there's not that drag of a low. It's just like it's just another act of love, like loving yourself for what you're feeling.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
life just becomes more magical that way. Yeah.
I love that you use the word harmony. I
Not
cringe
balance.
when you use the word balance. I cringe. I absolutely cringe. Oh, we got to find balance. What the hell's balance?
Yeah.
It's another part of this. It's another part of, you're gonna have the shit's gonna happen in life. I'm sorry. It's
Yeah.
How you deal with it, or what you choose to see. If you're moving away from pain and you're trying to run from pain and you're trying to get away from it, and oh my gosh, I can't feel this. Prioritizing pleasure, I say. Well, it's like I don't want to spiritual bypass. I don't ever want to sit there and say, oh, make pain wrong. But if you're only focusing on your pain and to get away from it, to where you are just spiraling in a loop of pain,
That's just
and you're
what
talking
makes it
about
feel
it and
harder.
you hate where you live. I was
Yeah.
there. I talked about, oh my gosh, I couldn't stand where I lived. I don't know if when you were married, you didn't like where the marriage, you didn't like the person, you didn't like, and the more you talk about it, the more it just festers it. It makes it more. So if we can prioritize what makes us feel good, we can sit there and have a better relationship to harmonize those different emotional vibrations within us.
Yeah.
And get to a frequency, get to a beingness that, oh my gosh, I'm resilient. I can deal with the highs. I can deal with the lows. I'm like, ooh, let's expand and go a little further. Who can I be today? And get back into those wonderful, curious ways.
And I find that the lows last less time. They're through quicker. I tend to now do my dark nights of the soul in, sort of, 24 to 48 hours, whereas before it would have been, 3-4 months of work, because I've got those tools to shift it. Yeah. Oh, hell yeah. But I know the professionals now that I trust to go and see to help me shift whatever it is that's going on that I can't see, that's gotten me there in the first place, or I've got those greater insights in it. And I'm reminded of that quote, what is it? You don't get harmony if everyone's singing the same note. You know,
Yeah.
you couldn't just sing the happiness. And this is why it pisses me off when everyone comes in and goes, I want to be happy. Well, you know what? If you're constantly happy, you're manic and you actually need medication for that. You know,
Yeah.
like, I hate to say it.
I
And no
love
one
that.
trusts someone who's happy all the time. Like,
There you
that's
go.
just dodgy. That's just weird. Like, that was kind of, you know, my ex-husband, hi, how you going? And nothing would reach the eyes, and it's kind of creepy. It's like a Chucky doll. It's weird.
I totally
You
agree.
need-
Some of
you
those
need
people
all
that are
those
like that, I'm like,
emotions.
I just feel like I
But you
can't
need-
trust you. You know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the more I actually said it in a podcast the other day. I said, you know, but you need that color, you need the texture, you need that. Otherwise, you're just a rug. Like, there's no tapestry. You're just like a beige rug.
Doormat. Walk all
It's
over
like,
you.
there's nothing
Yeah.
there. I
Yeah.
want the color, I want the texture, I want the highlights, I want the lowlights, I want
It's
all
all
of that
part.
sort
You
of
have
stuff
to
because
have.
it's
You
so
have to have it.
rich.
Yeah, you have to have
Yeah.
both ends of the spectrum. So we got
Yeah.
5 minutes left. So I would love to hear
Mhm.
from each of you. If you could provide maybe one tip on how you think people can start to shift that conditioning. So let's start with you, Michal.
I would say love all parts of yourself, like even the parts that you think need to be fixed and that are bad, or you're trying to find healing for, like love all parts of you. Like there's literally nothing that's wrong with you. There is nothing to fix. And you know, just those parts that need extra love, like you're feeling sad, you're feeling wounded, you're having these insecurities, these things coming up, because that part of you just needs love and validation. So give that to yourself. And that's really a game changer.
Mm.
Okay. Marianne.
Oh, I go in two different directions,
Mhm.
and that is really to do the deep excavation into what your beliefs are, what your, ask those questions and find, I call them, the dirty little lies. Ask questions to find out what these lies are that you're living, from religion to school to what your parents taught you, all of those. And the other one for me is truly to come home to your body. Come home to your body, start feeling in your body, being able to learn your yes, learn your no. If anybody's ever done kinesiology or muscle testing, your body's the wisest. It has all the information. You'll know if something is making you feel constricted, which is cutting off your life force, or you'll know if something's expansive and life force is coming in. So learn how to be in your body and learn your yes or no and expansion.
Hey,
Mm.
Amanda, lastly, but
I
certainly
think
not least.
I think for me it goes back to really, really simple stuff. Breathe. You know, unplug yourself, get into nature. It really is in that slowing down that we can do all of those other things, because what we're doing at the moment is we're hurtling through life at 40, 60, 80, 100 kilometers an hour. And I think that slowing down gives us a chance to tune into what's going into in our body, because we're not, you know, racing over it or shouting over it or getting all of those inputs in. I think the more we can slow down, the more we can hear, and dropping those through the day. Just little bits here and there, you know, stop and smell your coffee, enjoy your herbal teas, whatever it is, smell it, taste it, feel it, so that you're actually learning what those senses are again.
Mhm. Beautifully
Mhm.
said. Ladies, thank you all so
Mm.
very, very much from the bottom of my heart for being here with me today and sharing your thoughts, your wisdom, your insights, your opinion. I appreciate each of you. This has been such a rich, beautiful conversation, and I appreciate all of you for taking part and being part of episode 3 of the Empowerment Sessions. I've thoroughly
thank
enjoyed the
you, Brad.
conversation.
You're
Thank you,
amazing.
Brad.
Thank you so
Thank
much for bringing
you.
your
Thank you,
work to the
ladies.
world.
Thank you. Thank you,
I
everyone,
def-
for tuning in. I appreciate you all who took the time to be here with us today. This will stay up in the Empowerography podcast lounge. So if you didn't catch it live, you can, of course, catch it on the replay. Happy Friday, everyone. I'm wishing you all a wonderful, beautiful weekend. And of course, my 3 lovely panelists, I wish you all an amazing rest of the Friday, Saturday for you, Amanda, and have a great rest of the weekend, everyone. Thank you all for tuning in.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.